And you, of tender years, can't know the fears that your elders grew by, and so please help them with your youth, may see the truth before they can die. Teach the children. Made a bit of a mess of it, sorry. But, of course, children are being taught, but what are they being taught? A load of bullshit. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people to be able to take their children out of education and maybe educate them at home, but you know, there's other responsibilities going on there. You probably have to go out and work to feed them. Stuff like that. I know it must be difficult. But you can still tell them to take what they learn with a massive pinch of salt. A salt mine full of salt, really, especially if it's history or anything to do with the cosmos. If they teach that stuff, I don't know. I don't know what's going on now, really. But you know, I shudder to think really what they're being taught, and I know there's the education itself is kind of even more dumbed down than when I was there. There's much more multiple choice questions. Multiple guess is what we used to call them. So all you have to do is remember, and you'll do very well academically, but that doesn't mean anything. If you can't actually think your way out of a problem, then I don't think you are using your brain to any kind of to its potential capacity. Now I've got a YouTube downloader. I don't know whether that's even legal, but I've got one and I use it, and I suppose it's only illegal if you use it for copyrighted stuff. I don't know. But anyway, I use when I'm online, which is not here, which I've said many times. I don't have the internet here, but when I go and connect, I upload these vlogs, obviously, and download stuff that interests me, mostly from YouTube. And well, there was a lot of time that went by before I realised that quite a few films were available without paying. Now, these films are usually old films, but that's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the new Hollywood bullshit. Of course, I haven't been interested in them for many years. But I do like old Hollywood bullshit because, well, it's very telling. And sort of before they pretended to go to the moon, there are some great science fiction classics. Whether they are truly classics, I don't know, but they are in my head. Now, I watched one a few days ago now where they actually went to Venus in a rocket. So they got it in a rocket, and it lifted off, as it does, slowly. Actually, a rocket should go like this, because that's what they have to do if they're going to reach the escape velocity, apparently. But nothing ever works out. The rockets never go fast enough to actually to reach that speed, which is 17,000 miles an hour or thereabouts, depending on the weight of the rocket, of course. Oh, we've worked it all out mathematically, you fools. So off they go in this rocket, and the whole rocket goes up. You know, they don't jettison parts of it because this is before the moonshot, remember. And they do go to the space station. Yeah, they go to the space station to get refueled. And so when they're on the it's a proper space station. It's a proper model of one anyway. And it looks a bit like, actually, it looks a bit like the one from Moonraker, James Bond Moonraker, if you know that one. And that was a very special one, that, because it was like a big wheel in space and it turned. And that simulated the Earth's gravity so everybody could walk about instead of floating. Now, just think about that. How much bullshit are you willing to believe? That I don't. All that is total bullshit. From gravity, or thinking there's any gravity, to thinking something spinning in space, if there were gravity, that would counteract. Just think about it. It's fucking bullshit. Anyway, so they're on the way to Venus and they stop at the space station to refuel. And they lie, I don't know, they're sort of, I don't know, it's bullshit, you know, but they lie on some kind of pad and get out the 4-star nozzle, and I don't know, you don't see the refueling process, of course, but just the models of the rocket and the space station. And then they set off. Now, how are they going to set off again? If they've lost their momentum, how are they going to... Of course, it's a fantasy, so rockets do work in space in a fantasy. In a film, which is a fantasy. So rockets do work in a fantasy world, in a vacuum, of course. It's just in reality that would be impossible. So, off they go to Venus, and when they get to Venus, they land like this. Down again. The full rocket lands on its rocket on the surface of Venus. I missed a bit out, actually, because when they were actually on the space station, there were people in spacesuits walking about on the outside of the space station, you know, actually fueling or whatever they're doing. Maybe just debugging the windscreen on the rocket. And of course, nobody can go out in the vacuum of space in a spacesuit. Spacesuits are not made of, they're not suits of armor. They're not made of rigid material. They're made of some kind of fabric which allows you to move, just like a thick overcoat would. Now, if they really were in a vacuum, they would have to be pressurized on the inside. And I still haven't looked up the air pressure, but it is about 4 pounds per square inch. Now, you would need that to stop yourself exploding, you know, your body parts, your eyes from popping out your head and all that. So you'd need to be under pressure yourself in that suit. So 4 pounds per square inch on your body, and that equals 4 pounds per square inch on the inside of the suit. Yet on the outside of your suit, the vacuum would be, because there's no pressure whatsoever, it would be trying to explode and expand that suit even more. And it would bloody well win, because the force, or the strength of that vacuum would be far more than any flimsy fabric spacesuit. That's why we know that Well, we know from many other reasons, but it's one of the reasons why we know it's all bullshit. And when you see these lying astronauts on the outside of the fake station, they're actually in a pool. It's water. It's quite obviously water. There's bubbles, for one thing. I don't think I've seen a fish swimming past, but that'll come. So I heard actually somebody say that it was probably distilled water, which yeah, it's very likely. Anyway, getting back to this riveting film, they got to Venus and they landed like that. Of course, down on the rocket, like SpaceX do. And of course, it looks only a slight bit more convincing because of CGI and the modern ways to deceive people. But you're not deceiving me with any of that bullshit, because I know from being a practical person that you could never, ever achieve what lying twat Elon Musk says they do, and that is land the rocket back on the rocket base. That could never happen. So I can't go any further with the film. It's just so much bullshit. But there's another one I've seen that's not about flying to any planets or wandering stars as we know they are, but this one was about time travel. I just watched it a couple of nights ago. I'm not really recommending it. It's kind of research, to see how the programming was then. And by the way, each of these films was set up by some guy saying, mankind since the beginning of time wondered, and all that nonsense, and yet it's still la la la. And they were kind of setting you up for believing that both these incidents would become reality. And the second film was time travel. It was about time travel, and they were in this laboratory, and within the laboratory was this capsule that disappeared. It went forward in time, 1,000 years or something like that. They found that man was still at war. And then it was a mistake, by the way, that when they travelled that distance forward in time, and they were on about the space-time continuum, all that. It's just, programming has been happening to man, well, ever since they wrote the Bible, really. And just the methods have become much more far-reaching, radio, then television, and, well, that's just the ubiquitous TV in the corner of everybody's house that's always on, at least one of them. Not everybody, of course, because people are waking up and realising this and chucking them out the window, like I would urge everybody to do, as long as there's nobody, open the window first and make sure there's nobody there, but just give them a good yucking out the window. Don't sell them, because you're just selling the problem to somebody else. Just fucking destroy them. And until somebody with more moral fibre takes over control of the broadcasting, then I think that's a good advice. Anyway, so they went forward in time. They went then tried to get back into their own time. They went back in time, and lizards and giant lizards, and what a load of utter bullshit. But there you go. The programming was there. It was. And who had all these films made, you know. You've got to think about things like this, I think. Anyway, time's up. Let's go.